Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 20, 32-10, as the Lions put down a marker ahead of the first test against the All Blacks, with a record win over the New Zealand Maoris. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Right, welcome Lions fans to England Rugby Pod's Lions Watch. We're back once again, and I'm here, of course, with Dan. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Much more positive outlook on this one. Feels like the Lions, there's obviously still improvements needed, but it just feels like they're starting to wake up a bit, like gel better as a team. They seem more of a unit now than perhaps they have done in previous games, and of course the side looking much more like a test side, I think.
But the result was right, and yeah, I get that to a degree. Having watched New Zealand last night, I'm a little worried. I'll be honest. I'm a little worried. They looked so crisp, and I think the Maori All Blacks as well were bigged up to be a better team than they were. I don't think they were that strong.
No, I mean, fair enough. I'm gonna stay positive. I'm gonna take the win as a sign. But it's always good to have varying opinions, and obviously in this case, Dan is not quite so enthralled by it all. But that's good. That means that we can have a bit of a debate, and of course that's what we're here to do as we talk you through today's game. Lions versus the Maori All Blacks. A Lions win first and foremost, 32-10, so a decent win. Some tries scored, some penalties scored. So, a bit of everything, unlike some of the previous ones. Just before we get started, though, there's a couple of things that I just wanted to go through before we go into this game. First up, just the sad news that Ross Moriarty is off the tour. He has an injury. It's a pinched nerve in his leg. They reckon he'll be out for somewhere in the region of about 6 weeks. He's having a scan on Monday to confirm it. But obviously that's whether he was a test candidate. I mean, he certainly had a great opener. But yeah, sadly he's having to fly home, so that's obviously a bit of a blow for him.
Start of the year, barely anyone knew who he was. He's had an epic year. Like, he's earned that shirt, and it's such sad news. But do you know what, Ross Moriarty? Fair play to you. You've been a brilliant player. It's sad to see him go. As you know, because I've bored you all morning, I'm the angriest man in Britain and Ireland at the moment. But with Ross Moriarty, I really feel for him. We'll cover this. We'll cover the anger later. But
my plan is to. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up, as it doesn't relate directly to this game. So I thought we'll get that out of the way early. So I thought I'd start by saying to you, do Warren Gatland's recent additions make a mockery of the Lions shirt? Should geography ever define selection?
It's an absolute disgrace, mate. I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe it's a disgrace. That Lions, so use Ross Moriarty as an example. The guy has been a machine all year to earn that shirt. I don't even know the name of a couple of those guys. So you've got Christian Davies, whatever, a hooker. You've got a prop. You've got a second row, and you've got a scrum half. None of which we've got injured. If you need 6 props instead of 5, take them from the start. Mm-hmm. If you need 6 second row instead of 5, take them from the start. You're not covering. I've heard Finn Russell might be coming in. Fair enough. He's played well all year. He's earned his spot, and we've got an injury. With the others, mate, I think it's an absolute disgrace. I think you've made a mockery of the shirt. I think you've devalued it. I'm actually really pissed off about this, if I'm honest, mate. I think this Christian Davies guy, and I'm picking on him, and he could be the best guy ever. He could be the best player ever. Well, he's not the best player ever. Otherwise, we'd know about him. But is he now on a pedestal with Martin Johnson, with Willie John McBride? Has he earned that? I think it's a disgrace, mate. What are your thoughts, actually?
I completely agree with you. I think, yeah, it just doesn't fit right. It doesn't sit right. Sorry, with me. That you, as you say, you've got these players that put everything. This is the pinnacle of a rugby player's career. It only happens once every 4 years. Everything goes into earning that shirt. I mean, I would think the man who's got to be most angry about this has got to be Joe Launchbury, who was right on the fringes to begin with, was very unlucky to miss out on the tour. They've brought in a second row replacement. Why would you not go to him? And Warren Gatland says, it's about geography. The Welsh players were all down the road. But they've known, he's said since the beginning that he's likely to bring players in to bolster the side near, towards the end of the tour, or sort of at this stage of the tour. So he could easily have been speaking to Eddie Jones. He could easily have arranged to have a Joe Launchbury come out a week ago in order to, maybe just after the last Argentina game, come out, acclimatise and be ready to go by the time he was called up. Because the thing is, it's all well and good saying these new players are just for the midweek teams, and obviously that's why they've been called up. But you just don't know what's going to happen. And if injuries do occur, and if one of these players is called up out of necessity, you haven't even got the best players for the test side. So agree with that. And secondly, you're bringing in players to positions where you don't have injuries. Yeah.
You're bringing in like Tom Francis, in fairness, is a good player and probably was considered as a potential line anyway. So I'll leave him off this. But Corey Hill, like you say, Joe Launchbury must be there like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I've been epic all year. I was epic last weekend. And you're bringing in like Corey Hill, who's an okay player, but he's not a Lion. And I'm sorry, and if that's disrespectful to him, I'm sorry, but it's true. He's not a Lion. He's not good enough to be a Lion. And I just don't get it. You've already got 5 really, really good second row.
Yeah,
why have you brought him in?
I guess the thing is he may not even end up getting used. So I guess we wait and see what happens. I'm gonna stop that one there because I can see this is one of those things that you would happily debate and get more and more angry about for probably an hour and a half, and we don't want to do that today.
I'd try and fight you, and I know it's not your fault, but and I'd lose, but I'd try.
Fair enough. But we're going to move on. I'm sure this won't be the last we hear of it. So I'm sure there will be an opportunity to discuss this further as the tour progresses. But on, I think, to today's game, this is the one we've come here to see. And some interesting things to be taken from this game. I mean, first up, I think congratulations. A decent win. Winning is important. I think it puts them in the right mind frame. It was so important that they got a win going into the first test. They needed to have that confidence. I think another loss would have just been another psychological blow and these things are key to getting yourself in the right mindset to go out and win. But I think, well, actually, look, before that, let's go back to the very beginning of the game. Was that not the hardest haka you've ever seen? Haka?
Mate, I think the other week I said to you the rugby expression is all fart, no poo. When I watched that haka, it was all poo, no fart. Like I was crapping myself. I was scared. It was awesome. It's such a, I really like that heritage. I really like that team. As it turns out, they weren't a brilliant team today, but the heritage for that, I got a lot of respect for that haka.
Yeah, no, it's a good, strong thing. It's a great part of rugby in the Southern Hemisphere and obviously in New Zealand. And it felt nice to have a team performing it that you kind of felt like they had a right to perform it, unlike when everyone does their own version of a haka. This is an All Blacks thing, but even more so, it's a Maori thing. So that was really, really cool, really strong start. Kind of got you really geared up for the game. A couple of things regarding selections that I thought were interesting. Not so much selections, but who was doing what. Halfpenny, the kicker, over Johnny Sexton. Not that I don't think that Halfpenny's a better kicker, but does that send a message that because Farrell is injured and a possible doubt for the first test, and therefore Johnny Sexton is going to be his replacement? Does the fact that Johnny Sexton is not the kicker today mean that it looks like Halfpenny is nailed on for 15?
So I'd say definitely. I think so. I
mean, I think you had him in your selection anyway, but I think that probably sends a little message, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, and ignoring my own sort of vanity and stuff. I actually think he will be 15, and I think he will be the kicker. In some ways, it's probably good because it takes a bit of pressure off Sexton, because Sexton's been put under a lot of pressure. As one of the pundits said, this is probably the first time in I don't know 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever, but he's actually been challenged for his position. And the reality is, the person who's challenging him, if fit, is better.
Yeah.
And so he probably needs that pressure off. And Johnny Sexton's a quality player. And there were glimpses today where I was just like, I really like you, Johnny. You are quality. He's no Owen Farrell, but he's still a quality player. So I actually quite like Lee Halfpenny having that kick, assuming he's picked, of course, which I think's looking more and more likely.
Yeah, no, I think. Well, yeah, I guess we just have to. We need to get a bit of knowledge, don't we, on this Farrell injury and the seriousness of it. Obviously, we if it turns out that it is a serious injury, if it turns out that he will be missing that first test, we'll certainly reach out to the pod doc and get him on to talk about what's going on and why it's taking him the time that it is to recover. But yeah, back to this game. So the next thing that I noticed, so George North, there's been a lot of question marks over him. We questioned him. You still put him. I think we both still put him in our test sides, but we both kind of caveated it with you kind of have to, because the options are limited because the back threes haven't been great so far. He had another pretty poor game today, in my opinion. Particularly, I mean, early in that first half, the Maori try. I mean, he tracked back. Wing fullback 101 when the ball's on the ground and it's rolling away from you towards your own try line and you're the one chasing it back. You dive on it, you secure it, and you do your very best to hold on to it until your support arrives. He dived on it and just kind of pushed it away from him. It wasn't intentional, which would have been worse, but it was accidental, which is just as bad. He just had no control of that ball. Ball went loose. Maoris came through, chipped it through, dived on it. Easiest try they're going to score all year.
Completely agree with what you said. I think the Highlanders on Wednesday? I think that'll be really interesting to see who plays wing there.
Oh, no, sorry. It's the Highlanders we've just played.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So who's Hurricanes?
Hurricanes.
Let's say it's Hurricanes. It'll be really interesting to see. I think there's a possibility for someone to have a brilliant game and take that spot, but it's up to someone to do it. Like I say, I'll sort of move on from that because actually I agree with everything you say. So, and this is something I wanted to ask you actually during the match. I was watching this. So in your team last week, you didn't have Warburton in your 23.
Yeah.
Do you after today?
No. I don't.
Okay.
I think for me, Warburton is kind of been assumed a guarantee because he's the captain. I think firstly the Lions have proved they don't need him on the pitch as captain. So then you have to look at him as in look at form, and I'm not convinced that he is the form player to start first and foremost. And I think there's better options to on the bench as well. I don't think you need to have your tour captain on the bench. If you haven't got him starting, you certainly don't need to have him on the bench just because he's the tour captain, because someone else is going to do that job for the first 40, 50, 60, 70 minutes anyway. So I think, unfortunately for him, I don't think he was given enough time to change anybody's mind. Although, he's not looking to change my mind, he's looking to change Warren Gatland's, and maybe Warren Gatland is looking at things very differently, and maybe he only gave him 20 minutes because he's already decided what he's going to do. But I don't feel like anything has changed in that respect.
What were your thoughts on O'Brien?
I thought O'Brien had a great game today. I thought he looked strong.
Really?
Yeah. What were you? Do you obviously felt differently?
No, I don't think he had a bad game. I must admit, I wouldn't say great.
I just think that I mean, we'll move on to the back separately, but I just thought the forwards were so kind of they controlled the game so well. The set play was really good today. That was the winner. For the Lions. The line outs. I mean, I was going to come on to it at the end, but it seems like a good time now. And I know you love your stats. Line outs 11 from 11. Scrums. George
Cruz is going to be man of the tour, isn't he?
I mean, he's going to have to be up there. I think Cruz and Itoje both were phenomenal today. Jamie George was phenomenal. Scrums 12 from 12. So the front row, the scrum generally was great. And there are other stats that we'll come on to that apply to all of this as well. But I think that those two both did really well, and I think that set play was so key, and it set the tone for the game because it just shut the Maoris out. And that's what it's all about. I think on the downside is that the Lions seem to be very good today at retaining possession. They seem to be very good at getting into strong attacking positions, but they seem to lack whatever it was that's needed to just get through that final phase and convert to tries. a lot of penalties were given and were conceded by the Maoris in attacking positions, and so I guess there's an argument to say, if you keep doing that, you've got to find the sin bin, and that never happens. So there's a question in that respect. But you have to finish these. You have to, it's repaying the forwards. The backs need to be doing so. If the forwards make all that ground, the backs have to do something to say thanks very much. You can't, get isolated and lose the ball every time. And then just rely on your kicker to kick points. Even though we will obviously do that if that's where we find ourselves.
Oh, we win how we win, but yeah, no, mate, I agree with this. It was tough for me today. Like watching him back, there were times like Tio seems to be the only one with that ability to make the breaks at the moment. And don't get me wrong, he made some mistakes. He did make some mistakes, but you have to play him. Like no one else. Yeah. Seems to be breaking that line. No one else seems to be just, making the defence true and honest. Jonathan Davies, actually, I thought had a reasonable game. That looks like the right midfield to me if you're not playing Sexton Farrell, which I don't think will happen due to injury.
Yeah, I think that ship possibly has sailed. I think Tio's all but guaranteed his place at 12. I think Davies, he didn't have a bad game, but I don't think... It's probably too late to make any changes going into the first test, but I don't think by any stretch he's said, that shirt is no longer up for grabs. But I guess we just wait and see. He certainly, as I say, he wasn't bad, but I think you need to. The trouble is, Tio made a lot of breaks. He made a lot of gains. He broke through a lot of tackles. He never seemed to have anyone in support, and that's one of the things I think they really have to work on. Leading up to that first test, is that ability to support the attacking players. Because the carriers are getting really isolated, and you're never going to turn possession into points unless you're supporting the runners.
If somebody makes a break, it's 100% up to everyone else to support him. If somebody sees a gap and goes for it, it's up to everyone else to support him. It's not up to them to run to support. It's up to everyone else to run to him if he sees that gap, which Tio did. So I blame the rest of the team actually for that.
Yeah.
And I stick by that in rugby as a whole. I think I had a really good point there, which I just lost. Which,
we definitely couldn't tell, mate.
Okay, it's still the anger of those bloody Welsh guys just being called up for no reason. Like, I'm so furious.
That has happened. That's
I need
we can create a little segment if you like. The Dan would I don't know, come up with a good name for it, but that can be a little segment at the beginning of episodes if you like. But yeah, back to this one. I think it still feels this should cheer you up a little bit. It definitely still feels like the team misses the attacking game management of Owen Farrell. I think he's key, and he would be a huge loss if he doesn't make that first test.
I agree, mate. Like Owen Farrell is such a quality player. I think we'll miss him. I think one of the things to me, for the Lions to win, they have to have a near on perfect game, and New Zealand can't be at their best. And that's my view at the moment, having seen just how polished New Zealand were last night.
So the defence, I think, again, stepped up. They stepped up against the Crusaders, and it was clear that it plays a huge part in controlling the game. And once again today, they were strong in defence. They really shut down the Maoris. They really put them under pressure. I think the depth that they played at, the Maoris, was kind of forced by the fact that the Lions were so quick off the line that they just didn't have time to play flat attacking rugby. And we know that's what the All Blacks like doing as well. So if the Lions can put that same kind of pressure on the All Blacks, we know from history that the All Blacks don't like to be put under pressure. They don't like to be coming from behind. And that's got to be the key to a win in the first test on the 24th of June. Do you not think?
I'd be amazed if that's not the game plan. It has to. The only way the All Blacks ever seem to lose is by just being in their face straight up. So yeah, mate, if we don't play that, that's how Ireland beat them. That's how we beat them in 2012. It does appear to be the only way. So I'm sure that will be the game plan. Although my trust in Warren Gatland at the moment is minimal. I know. I'm sorry. Still bitter.
So we've talked about Farrell and Sexton, and the fact that in our opinion Sexton's going to start unless Farrell's available, in which case Farrell's going to start at 10. We've agreed that Teo has pretty much guaranteed his place at 12, and that Davies is probably going to be his centre partner. We're fairly confident that Halfpenny is going to find himself at the back. We're still not sure about the wings. Watson probably still in there. North, we'll see what happens. Cruz and Itoje, I think, have played themselves in as the starting pair. There was obviously it was Cruz, Itoje, Alan Wynne. We both agreed with Cruz, Itoje. I think today just highlights that is the pairing that you need to start that game.
They're the two best second row, yeah.
Jamie George, who I didn't pick as my starter, but you did, and who I know I'm not allowed to change my team, and so obviously I won't. But he is going to be the starting hooker. Mako's obviously going to be in. I think he had a superb game. I think it was clear when he was taken off that it was a case of let's get him off now and rest him. There's no need to keep him on there anymore. He's too important. The scrum, the quality of our scrum, it always seemed to kind of wheel slightly left on his side, which would suggest that he absolutely dominated his opposite man. But I think Tad Furlong has probably done enough as well. So I think that probably is going to be the test front row. Do you agree?
But I can't see a different scenario. Like it wouldn't annoy me if there was a different scenario, but I would go with that. Yeah.
Okay. Now this is. See, I think that they are. Do you agree? Are the Maoris very lucky to have only had one yellow card, which was, a kind of an isolated incident that was correct in being a yellow card because he did go in with a shoulder. There was no attempt to wrap, and it's dangerous. So put that to one side. There were an awful lot of penalties given away within sort of 10 metres. Can you really go? I mean, I think they were warned at the beginning of the second half, and yet they probably gave away another 4 or 5 in the same area, and nothing was done about it.
So this is a really good point you bring up, actually, mate. So I wonder if it'll be different for the test matches. Are they giving more leeway because it's not test matches? If they're not, there should be more yellows and they need to be stricter. But I actually think there might be a slight, we don't want to ruin the game. We don't want to put someone off. I think, and I hope in the test matches, because you're right, there should have been more yellows.
Well, it'll be interesting because, of course, Jaco Piper, who ref today, is the ref for the first test. So the Lions have that advantage of knowing exactly how he referees. He does a lot. He referees an awful lot in Europe. And of course, today was a prime example of what they can expect. And he's not going to be able to help but have in the back of his mind, he's already seen this team playing. So when it comes to the All Blacks, certainly at scrum time, there could be a slight advantage there for the Lions, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. So actually, I think that's our best bet. The scrum has got to be something we've really got to take the most advantage of. It's our scrum is looking good. We just, like we say, in the backs, we had opportunities to finish. We don't finish. We need to do that against the All Blacks.
Absolutely.
But it's a tricky one, mate. But do you know what? We've probably gone through what we need to go through in this game, sort of given our views. Obviously, there's sort of a match next week. I'll be really interested to see what that team is, actually. I'm not sure. Will it just be a midweek team? Will it just be sort of a Wales B team or whatever? But I'd like to see a few other players get another chance, just one last chance to put their hands up for the test.
I'm sure there'll be one or two, and I think back of his mind, he's got to be thinking there's 2 more tests to come. So yeah. So he needs to have guys that he's ready to include, if necessary, for test 2 or 3. But look, like you say, we've probably covered everything. So let's leave it on a high. Lions 11 from 11 in the line out, 12 from 12 in the scrum, 8 turnovers, only 4 penalties conceded, 70% possession, 144 passes, 134 runs. Definitely a much more attacking performance, even if not so much in open play. They just need to fix that support lines, running those support lines, and I think if they can do that, the offloads will start turning into more ground, and I think tries will come. But, in the meantime, those forwards need to keep doing what they're doing. They need to win line-outs. They need to win scrums. And that's going to give the Lions the possession that they need to hopefully get the all-important first win against New Zealand on the 24th of June.
Well done, boys. And let's have the same score next weekend.
Absolutely. And of course, guys, thanks so much again for listening. As always, please go on iTunes, rate us, review us. You can check us out on social media at England Rugby Pod, and you can also go to the website www.englandrugbypod.com. Hopefully we will hear from you a little bit later on. We'll be covering, of course, the England game against Argentina later on today in episode 21. And then we'll also have a look at the England under-21s who take on New Zealand in the final of the Under-21 Rugby World Cup. And that's tomorrow. So there'll be an episode probably on that coming out Monday morning. So keep an eye out for that one too. Right, take care, guys. Bye.